We had to develop something to get that top end reel. There was nothing there that we could go and purchase that ticked all the boxes. So we really wanted to address that and develop a reel that was actually designed from the very beginning as a match fishing reel. One of the main reasons for developing the reel, we felt, was there was a distinct lack of reels that had been designed specifically for match fishing. My name's Sean Little and I'm the Matrix brand manager. Either the body shape wasn't quite right, or the scaling of the reels throughout a range wasn't quite right. Really little things that from our consultants had picked up and fed back to us that they liked or didn't like, and we really found that there wasn't a solution available to us that covered all of those options. Reels are quite a difficult one, because predominantly they're spinning reels or beach casting reels or carp reels. The match sector is kind of made up of like an amalgamation of various different ones from different markets, because it's a much smaller market. So we really wanted to address that and develop a reel that was actually designed from the very beginning as a match fishing reel. And basically we set about doing that, and obviously to do that you need to command a top end price point, because there was a significant amount of investment that went into that, not just time but also financially.
So these reels are tooled from scratch. It's all our own tooling, which is a significant investment for the brands. I'm not talking 10, 20,000, I'm talking six figures, which you base that project on its own merit, probably doesn't warrant itself, but it's a statement for the brand. You know, the brand turns over well in excess of £10 million now, and you don't get huge opportunities to invest in such brands apart from seat boxes and things like that. So we were really keen to do it, and the results so far have been very, very positive. My name is Sean McSpadden. I head up the whole development team for the Rather Outdoors group.
So the design process for the reel, because we started the whole project from the ground up, for me that's the most exciting way of doing any project, because you've got a blank piece of paper and it's what do you want to achieve. So the initial phase of the project, of the brief, is sit down with our consultants and work out what do they actually want from a reel. You know, what's important, what's missing, what factors do they like that on reels that are already out there, what things could we bring into our reel that sort of will determine it being slightly different from other reels on the market. The next phase, which is really, really important, is finding the right manufacturer. I mean, I can't stress how important that is, really, because you could have the best design in the world, but if your manufacturer hasn't got the ability to create the parts to the quality that you require, then you're going to hit major stumbling blocks further down the road. So we're really lucky that within the Rather Outdoors organisation, it opened up some new manufacturers to us, and we were thankful to get into one of the very, very best reel manufacturers that our business has available to us. It's like one of the things we did notice, especially with a lot of the top end spinning reels, was they'd moved away from having a backwind. That obviously there is benefits to doing this, but from a match fishing point of view, a backwind as well as your drag system is so important. Yeah, and then obviously we work with the design team. We come up with some concepts. We 3D print a lot of product now. The benefit to this, we have a studio in the office where we can set the printers off and we print various designs, but it allowed us to really drill home what we wanted to achieve with this reel without investing any money at the start. So it meant we had like maybe 6 or 7 variations of the product that just evolved each time. After that, then you really get into working with a supplier on the internals, how they work, how they're going to be housed, what quality you want to use, you know, what gear ratios you want, what retrieve you want. And Adam, our head of design, he's done a lot of work on reels, and I mean, he's far more qualified to talk about this than I am, and he can go into a lot more detail on the specifics of that. But yeah, that's the basic and fundamental outline of how we created the project and got to where we are at now.
We had the opportunity with a new supplier to look into aluminium gearing, which we have used before on some sports fishing saltwater reels. I'm Adam Taylor and I'm head of design for Rather Outdoors. Basically, the aluminium offers the strength, coupled with a brass pinion gear gives you the smoothness. So what you achieve is a smooth reel, but one which can take the abuse year on year. You'll find with some of the more budget reels, for want of a better word, we use a zinc main gear, which offers a really nice buttery feel, but the longevity isn't there. So after prolonged hard use, you will start to see accelerated wear with that kind of gear setup. There are a couple of other aspects we immediately jumped on. The next one was spool diameter. How big do we want the spools? So we knew we wanted a 3000 and a 4000 size reel. We started printing out some 3D spools to check diameters, comparing them against competitors and our own range to make sure they make sense for the end user, because the last thing we want to do is bring out something we're calling one size when it doesn't look like anything else. And once we've set that down, we also look at what diameter line we want to look at for each of these sizes, and what level of capacity we want, which then helps us spec the spool size further. Discussing things regarding stroke length, which is how much the reel will oscillate backwards and forwards, is critical to this as well. You can have a large, long stroke length like you'll see on some surf casting reels outside of match fishing, or generally you have a fairly short stroke length on a match reel. So we knew where we were at. Once we'd specified exactly where we were going with that, we can confirm the spool size. And once we've confirmed the spool size, we were then able to go further and start looking at the whole reel setup, which was another important part for us.
So one of the areas that was highlighted within our initial briefing phase was how match anglers use a reel differently to other anglers. So in particular, how we trap the line when we're casting out, but also if you're running a waggler through or a stick float through, how you control the speed of that. And it's really important that you can touch your spool with your finger. So we've spent a long time working out the perfect distance between the reel foot and actually where the spool sits. And we did this through 3D printing. So we actually 3D printed a model that was movable, so you could move the body and the reel foot away from one another, which allowed us to adjust the part to work out the perfect distance between the two. Obviously you have to factor in that people's sizes of hands change, so we had to work on an average size. But that was one of the things that the consultants raised was really wanted something that was more functional when we're casting out. Sometimes when your reel's fully extended, you do struggle to get your finger on the end of the spool, which then prohibits your casting.
We felt that hadn't been utilised well enough in other reels out there on the market, so it was a point where we wanted to focus. So as soon as we'd specified the spool size, we then looked at where the foot for the reel body would sit to give you the best reach possible, and that was a key factor next in the design phase and laying out where parts would be. Sean wanted as much of a compact reel body size as possible, and I'd agree with him. I think aesthetically they look really nice. We also highlighted that we wanted a magnesium body over a carbon reinforced plastic, which is quite common in the market at the moment as well. It offers lightweight, but it does have the perception that it's a little stronger, and there's no major weight penalties with using it. It's also dimensionally pretty stable in terms of it's easier to control the tolerances on, which is critical for a good gear feel. Gearing feel from a reel is made up of a number of factors: how well the gear teeth are cut in the first place, the position of the gears relative to each other, and how the bearings therefore sit for all these shafts in the case, and how all of these tolerances have to work together. And it doesn't take a lot to knock them out for a reel suddenly from feeling very nice to feeling way off. So there was that factor, there was the material, and there was the body size. We knew from the gear ratio we'd chosen how big the drive gears needed to be, so it's really a case of packaging an internal package from that point. We know what we need to cover, and then it's a case of coming up with a style that we think is aesthetically pleasing and keeping the size relative to where we want. As discussed earlier, we wanted a good, easy reach to the spool, which meant a fairly forward foot position, and it's a case of mapping that out, making sure you've got clearance from the rotor as well, which again is dictated to by the spool size.
The main area that we had to tweak was something that we expected, because it's not being done on many reels or any reels that I'm aware of, which was the internal sealing that we went to, the level and the number of internal seals that we've used. The reason why we did this is to stop dirt, ground bait, salts entering the reel and clogging them up. Like, when you're paying top money for a top reel, it's not about how it feels in the shop, it's about how it feels in 12 months' time. And one of the key attributes to reels degrading in the way that they feel is obviously stuff getting into the internal parts of the reel.
All of the bearings on a reel are susceptible to corrosion. Adding seals to them does create drag, so it's finding the balance whereby you're going to get the best level of protection for these bearings without creating a really slow feeling reel. One of the major bearings that suffers from corrosion the fastest is the one-way bearing, which is inside the rotor, and this is one which we highlighted that we really wanted to try and protect as much as possible. We're not advocating you dunk these reels underwater. That's, in my view, a terrible idea, but they're going to get covered in all sorts of stuff, and they are going to get water chucked on them to wash them over. The more care you give anything, the longer it'll last, but we wanted to give these the best chance of lasting as long as possible. We highlighted that the one-way bearing and the other supporting pinion bearings up the front are the most likely to go, and therefore we highlighted this as an area whereby we wanted to add some sealing. So you've got the spool moving backwards and forwards, so you've got a shaft there that's oscillating forwards and backwards whilst the rotor's rotating, and this is quite a difficult area to seal, but we feel with the triple seals we've managed to achieve one seal between the main oscillating shaft and the pinion, then we've got another one underneath the rotor and the one-way bearing housing, and then we've got another over the bearing cover to help limit water ingress in that area.
Getting that tolerance to work between all the parts really had a big effect on how the reel feels. So yeah, that was probably one of the areas that we spent quite a long time just with very, very minor adjustments to get the feel that we wanted within the product. It's the first time we've developed a reel in-house from the very beginning all the way to the finished product. You know, we've left no stone unturned with it. I think the reel looks stunning. I think every part of the design aesthetically screams Matrix, and I think functionality wise as well, it's incredible. We've had no issues during the testing phase. Durability has been incredible. And I think every now and again you have a project that you can be very, very proud of. And I think all of the team at Matrix are. And I really think you need to get out, pick one up in a local retailer, have a feel for yourself. But the key thing is, if you see any of our guys on the bank, pick one up and have a fish with it. Ask them if you can chuck it out and, you know, retrieve a feeder with it or a waggler with it, to really gauge what a special product it is.